Marcus Chun stood at attention near the large windows of the observation deck. His dark uniform was perfectly pressed, and his hand rested near his sidearm out of habit. The Harmony's Edge was humanity's finest diplomatic vessel, built specifically for this moment in history. Today marked the first official meeting between humans and the Zephyrian Empire. The ship floated in neutral space, exactly halfway between Earth and Zephyr Prime. Both sides had agreed on this location after months of careful negotiations through long-range communications. Marcus had been chosen for this mission because of his calm nature and quick thinking. As a security officer, his job was simple: keep everyone safe and stay out of the way of the diplomats. The Zephyrians were unlike anything humans had imagined. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly in the ship's lights. Their movements were graceful and precise, like dancers performing an ancient ritual. Every gesture seemed planned and meaningful. They wore flowing robes of deep purple and silver, and their eyes were large and completely black. Princess Lorelei was the youngest of the Zephyrian delegation. She appeared to be curious about everything on the human ship. While the other Zephyrians maintained their formal distance, she asked questions about the human technology and culture. Her translator device made her voice sound musical. Even when she was asking simple questions about how the food replicators worked, Captain Morrison was leading the tour through the ship's most impressive areas. The observation deck was always a favorite stop, because it offered a perfect view of the stars and the ship's massive fusion core chamber below. The chamber was protected by multiple safety barriers and force fields, but visitors could still see the bright blue glow of the fusion reaction through the transparent aluminum viewing panels. Marcus noticed that Princess Lorelei had moved closer to the main viewing area. She was leaning against what appeared to be a solid safety barrier, looking down at the fusion core with obvious fascination. The other Zephyrians were discussing technical matters with the human engineers, their voices low and formal. Something felt wrong to Marcus. His years of security training had taught him to notice small details that others might miss. The safety barrier that the princess was leaning against looked slightly different from the others. The metal seemed to shimmer in a way that suggested it might not be as solid as it appeared. He took a step toward the princess, planning to suggest she move to a safer viewing position. That was when he heard the sound that would haunt his dreams later. A sharp crack followed by the grinding noise of metal failing. The safety barrier gave way completely. Princess Lorelei fell backward into empty space, her arms reaching for anything that might stop her fall. Below her was a 60-foot drop straight into the fusion core chamber. The chamber's safety systems would try to protect her, but Marcus knew they were designed to stop radiation and energy, not catch falling people. Time seemed to slow down for Marcus. His enhanced human reflexes kicked in, a product of both training and the genetic modifications that many security personnel received. He could see 17 different ways this situation might play out. In most of them, the princess would die without thinking about the consequences. Marcus dove over the edge after her, his emergency grappling equipment activated automatically as soon as the ship's sensors detected his fall. A thin cable shot out from his belt, seeking the nearest solid anchor point. Marcus twisted in the air, using his momentum to reach the falling princess. His arms closed around her just as his grappling line went tight. The cable jerked both of them to a sudden stop, swinging them away from the fusion core and toward the chamber's maintenance platform. Marcus absorbed most of the impact as they crashed onto the metal grating, rolling to protect the princess from injury. For a moment, everything was silent except for the humming of the fusion core and their heavy breathing. Princess Lorelei looked up at Marcus with her large black eyes, clearly shaken but unharmed. She started to say something, probably words of thanks, but she never got the chance. The sound of boots on metal announced the arrival of the rescue teams from both species. The human security team reached them first, followed closely by the Zephyrian guards. Captain Morrison's face showed relief when she saw both of them were alive. But that relief quickly changed to confusion when she saw the expressions on the Zephyrian faces. The Zephyrians were not relieved. They looked horrified. The lead Zephyrian delegate, Ambassador Kithara, spoke in rapid, harsh tones to Princess Lorelei. Even through the translator, Marcus could hear the anger in his voice. The princess responded in what sounded like pleading, but the ambassador cut her off with a sharp gesture. "What is wrong?" Captain Morrison asked. "Everyone is safe. Officer Chun saved the princess's life." Ambassador Kithara turned to face the humans. His expression was cold and formal. "The human has committed the gravest sin possible in our culture. He has touched royal blood without permission. This is blasphemy of the highest order." Marcus felt his stomach drop. He had known that different species would have different customs, but this had never come up in any of the cultural briefings. "I was saving her life," he said simply. "That does not matter," the ambassador replied. "Our laws are clear. To touch a member of the royal family without express permission is punishable by death. There are no exceptions." Captain Morrison stepped forward. "Surely you cannot be serious." He risked his own life to save hers. In human culture, that makes him a hero. "We are not humans," Ambassador Kithara said firmly. "Our ways have been established for thousands of years. They cannot be changed for the convenience of aliens, even well-meaning ones." Princess Lorelei tried to speak again, but another Zephyrian, obviously an advisor of some kind, silenced her with a look. Marcus realized that she could not defend him even if she wanted to. Doing so would probably be seen as another violation of their customs. The rest of the day passed in a blur of tense negotiations. The human diplomats tried every argument they could think of, but the Zephyrians would not bend. Their law was their law, and Marcus had broken it. The fact that he had saved a life in the process was irrelevant to them. As evening came, Captain Morrison made the hardest decision of her career. The alliance with the Zephyrian Empire was too important to risk over one man, even a good man who had done the right thing. She agreed to turn Marcus over to Zephyrian. Justice. Marcus spent his last night aboard the Harmony's Edge, looking out at the stars and wondering if saving one life was worth losing his own. He decided it was. He would make the same choice again, even knowing the consequences. The Zephyrian flagship was a massive vessel that made the human ship look small by comparison. Marcus walked through its corridors with his hands bound behind his back, flanked by 4 Zephyrian guards. The walls were covered in flowing designs that seemed to tell stories, though Marcus could not read their meaning. Everything was decorated in the same deep purple and silver colors he had seen in their clothing. The trial chamber was unlike any courtroom Marcus had ever imagined. It was circular, with the accused standing in the center, while judges sat in raised seats around the edges. Soft light came from crystals embedded in the walls, creating an atmosphere that felt both beautiful and threatening. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars beyond, as if the universe itself was watching the proceedings. 7 Zephyrian judges took their places in the circle. Each wore elaborate robes that marked their rank and position. Their faces showed no emotion as they looked down at Marcus. Ambassador Kithara stood to one side, ready to present the case against the human. There was no one to defend Marcus. In Zephyrian law, the accused was expected to speak for himself. The chief judge, an ancient Zephyrian whose skin had turned almost white with age, spoke first. His voice was deep and carried the weight of centuries of tradition. Human called Marcus Chun, you stand accused of the crime of royal violation. You touched Princess Lorelei without permission, breaking laws that have protected our people for 3,000 years. How do you answer? Marcus stood straight, meeting the judge's gaze. He had decided during the long night to tell the truth, no matter what happened. "I am guilty of touching the princess," he said clearly. "But I did it to save her life. She was falling towards certain death. I could not stand by and watch her die." A murmur went through the chamber. Several judges exchanged glances, though their expressions remained neutral. The chief judge raised his hand for silence. "The law does not recognize intent," the judge said. "Our ancestors created these rules to protect the sacred nature of royal blood. Without these protections, chaos would consume our society. Order must be maintained above all else." Ambassador Cathara stepped forward. "The human admits his guilt. There is no need for a long trial. The law is clear on the punishment for this crime." But the chief judge held up his hand again. "We will hear the full truth before we pass judgment. Human, explain your actions from the beginning." Marcus told his story in simple, direct words. He described seeing the safety barrier fail, watching the princess fall, and making the split-second decision to save her. He explained how his training and reflexes had guided his actions. He spoke of the 17 different possibilities he had seen in that brief moment, and how only one offered any real chance of keeping the princess alive. "You calculated these possibilities?" one of the younger judges asked. "In the time it took her to fall?" "Yes," Marcus replied. Human minds can process information very quickly in emergency situations. It is one of our natural abilities. The judges conferred among themselves in low voices. Their language was musical, but too rapid for the translator devices to follow. Marcus caught occasional words, but he could not understand their discussion. Finally, the chief judge spoke again. "This ability to think quickly in danger is interesting, but it does not change the law. You have admitted to touching royal blood. The punishment is death, carried out by the traditional method of spacing." Marcus felt his heart rate increase, but he kept his expression calm. He had expected this outcome. "I understand your law," he said, "but I want you to understand something about humans. We cannot stand by and watch innocent people die, even if saving them brings punishment to ourselves. It is not in our nature to calculate the cost of doing what is right." "Your nature is not relevant here," Ambassador Cathara said sharply. "You are not among humans now." One of the judges, a female with intricate silver markings on her face, leaned forward. "Chief Judge, I request permission to ask additional questions." The old judge nodded. "Speak, Judge Virani." "Human Marcus Chun," she said, "in your culture, would you be punished for saving the life of an important person?" "No," Marcus answered. "In human culture, saving a life is always considered a good thing, regardless of who that person is or what rules might be broken in the process. And if the person you saved was someone you disliked or considered an enemy." Marcus thought for a moment. "It would not matter. If someone is in danger and I can help them, I would help them. That is what humans do." Judge Virani sat back, looking thoughtful. The other judges resumed their quiet discussion. Marcus noticed that their conversation seemed more intense now, with several of them gesturing toward him. The trial continued for several hours. The judges asked detailed questions about human culture, about Marcus's training, and about the specific moments of the rescue. They wanted to understand not just what he had done, but why he had done it. Marcus answered every question honestly. Princess Lorelei was brought in to testify about the incident. She stood in the same central position where Marcus had been questioned. Her testimony was brief and factual. She confirmed that the safety barrier had failed, that she had fallen, and that Marcus had saved her life. She was not allowed to express opinions about Marcus's actions or the punishment he faced. When the princess finished speaking, she looked directly at Marcus for the first time since the rescue. Her large black eyes seemed to convey a message he could not quite understand. Then the guards escorted her away. The judges debated for a long time. Marcus was taken to a holding cell to wait for their decision. The cell was comfortable, but clearly designed to prevent escape. He used the time to think about his life and the choices that had brought him to this moment. He found that he had no regrets. When the guards came for him again, the stars outside the ship had changed position. Several hours had passed. The trial chamber was arranged the same way as before, but the atmosphere felt different. The judges seemed tense, as if they had struggled with their decision. The chief judge stood to announce the verdict. His ancient face showed no emotion, but Marcus thought he detected something like sadness in his voice. "Marcus Chen of Earth," the judge said, "you have been found guilty of royal violation under the ancient laws of our people. However, the court recognizes that your actions were motivated by a desire to preserve life, which we also value. Therefore, we have decided to show mercy." Marcus waited, unsure what Zephyrian mercy might involve. "Instead of death," the judge continued, "you will undergo the erasure. Your memories and personality will be removed, leaving your body alive but your mind empty. This punishment honors the law while preserving the life you sought to protect." The chamber fell silent. Marcus realized that the Zephyrians considered this a generous compromise. To them, he would technically still be alive, even if everything that made him who he was would be destroyed. The preparation for the erasure ceremony took place in a chamber deep within the Zephyrian flagship. Marcus was strapped to a metal table while technicians adjusted strange devices around his head. The machines hummed with energy, designed to carefully remove every trace of his memories and personality while leaving his body unharmed. Ambassador Kithara oversaw the preparations personally. He moved between the technicians, checking their work and asking detailed questions about the procedure. To him, this was a sacred ritual, one that would restore the balance that Marcus had disturbed by his actions. "The process will take approximately 1 hour," the lead technician reported. "We will begin with his most recent memories and work backward. His body will remain healthy, but his mind will be completely blank." Marcus tried not to think about what that meant. He focused instead on the memory of Princess Lorelei falling and his decision to save her. If he was going to lose everything, he wanted that moment to be the last thing he remembered. The technicians were making their final adjustments when alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The lights in the chamber flickered, and a voice spoke over the communication system in rapid Zephyrian. Marcus could not understand the words, but he could hear the urgency in the speaker's tone. Ambassador Kithara's face changed completely. The formal calm that all Zephyrians seemed to maintain disappeared, replaced by what looked like fear. He spoke quickly to the technicians, who immediately began shutting down their equipment. "What is happening?" Marcus asked, though he did not expect an answer. Kithara looked at him with an expression Marcus had never seen on a Zephyrian face before. "Queen Thessarian has arrived," he said quietly. "She has come personally to oversee your punishment." The technicians moved even faster now, disconnecting the machines and clearing the chamber. Within minutes, everything had been removed except the table where Marcus lay strapped down. The guards took positions around the room, their weapons ready but not drawn. Marcus had heard of Queen Thessarian during the cultural briefings, though no human had ever seen her. She was the absolute ruler of the Zephyrian Empire, a leader who had guided her people for over 2 centuries. According to the briefings, she rarely left her homeworld and never involved herself in minor legal matters. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Queen Thessarian entered slowly, and Marcus understood immediately why her people followed her. She was taller than the other Zephyrians, and her presence filled the room like a force of nature. Her robes were pure white instead of purple, and they seemed to glow with their own light. Her skin had the same pale blue coloring as the others, but her eyes were different. Instead of solid black, They swirled with silver patterns that moved like living things. Ambassador Kithara dropped to one knee immediately. Every other Zephyrian in the room did the same, their heads bowed low. The silence was complete, except for the quiet humming of the ship's systems. The Queen looked around the chamber, taking in every detail. Her gaze settled on Marcus, and he felt as if she was reading his thoughts. When she spoke, her voice was different from the other Zephyrians. It carried more authority than any human leader Marcus had ever encountered. "Rise," she said simply, and the Zephyrians stood up but kept their eyes lowered. "Leave us." "Your Majesty," Ambassador Kithara began. "The ceremony is ready to—" I said, "Leave us." The Queen's voice did not change in volume, but something in it made Kithara step backward. "All of you. I will speak with the human alone." The chamber emptied quickly. Even the guards left, though Marcus suspected they were stationed just outside the doors. The Queen waited until they were completely alone before approaching Marcus's table. She touched the control, and the straps holding Marcus released. He sat up slowly, unsure of what was expected of him. Should he bow? Stand? Run? None of those options seemed appropriate. "Remain seated," the Queen said, as if reading his confusion. "We need to talk." Marcus nodded, waiting for her to continue. Up close, he could see that her white robes were covered and designed similar to those he had noticed in the ship's corridors. But these designs moved and shifted as he watched, like writing that rewrote itself continuously. "You saved my daughter's life," the Queen said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty. Tell me why." Marcus had answered this question many times during his trial, but something about the Queen's presence made him think more carefully about his response. She was falling towards certain death. I could not watch that happen and do nothing to stop it, even knowing it would cost you your life. "I did not think about the cost," Marcus admitted. "I only thought about saving her." The Queen studied his face for a long moment. "My advisors tell me that you calculated multiple rescue scenarios in the seconds before you acted. That suggests you did think about the situation." "I thought about how to save her," Marcus clarified. "I did not think about what would happen to me afterward." The Queen moved closer to the table. "I want to experience your memories of that moment. Will you permit me to link with your mind?" Marcus had heard about Zephyrian neural linking during the cultural briefings. It was a technology that allowed them to share thoughts and memories directly. The idea of having his mind touched by an alien intelligence was frightening, but he was already certain to lose his memories anyway. "Yes," he said. The Queen placed her hand on Marcus's forehead. Her skin was surprisingly warm, and he felt a tingling sensation as the neural link activated. For a moment, he experienced a dizzy sensation of being in two places at once. Then the Queen was inside his memories, experiencing everything he had felt during the rescue. The link lasted only a few seconds, but Marcus could tell that she had seen everything. Not just his actions, but his thoughts and motivations as well. When she removed her hand, her expression had changed completely. "Remarkable," she said quietly. "You truly did not consider yourself at all. In the moment when you had to choose between safety and sacrifice, you chose to risk everything for someone you barely knew." "That is what anyone should do," Marcus said. "No," the Queen replied firmly. "That is what a hero does. And it is what very few beings in this universe would actually do when faced with the same choice." She began pacing around the chamber, her robes flowing behind her. Marcus could see that she was thinking hard about something, but he could not guess what. "There is something else," she said finally. "Something my advisors have not told me. My daughter did not fall by accident, did she?" Marcus hesitated. He had suspected sabotage from the beginning, but he had no proof. "The safety barrier seemed damaged before it failed," he said carefully. The Queen's silver eyes swirled faster. Someone tried to kill my daughter, and you saved her. Yet my own people want to destroy your mind as punishment for breaking an ancient law." She stopped pacing and looked directly at Marcus. "This will not stand." Queen Viserion called for an immediate assembly of the full court. Within an hour, every important Zephyrian aboard the flagship had gathered in the Great Hall. This was a room Marcus had not seen before, enormous and decorated with thousands of years of Zephyrian history. Tapestries covered the walls, showing scenes of ancient battles and ceremonies. The ceiling was a dome of crystal that showed the stars above. Marcus stood in the center of the hall, no longer restrained but surrounded by guards. The 7 trial judges sat in their formal positions, along with dozens of other officials, advisors, and military officers. Ambassador Kithara looked nervous, clearly unsure why the queen had called this assembly. Princess Lorelei was also present, standing with several other members of the royal family. She kept glancing toward Marcus, her expression unreadable. The human diplomatic team had been allowed to attend as observers, standing in a separate section of the hall. Captain Morrison caught Marcus's eye and nodded slightly, offering what support she could. Queen Viserion entered last, walking slowly down the center aisle toward a throne that had been prepared for her. The throne was carved from a single piece of black stone and decorated with silver symbols that seemed to glow in the crystal light. Every Zephyrian in the room bowed as she passed. When the queen reached her throne, she did not sit. Instead, she turned to face the assembled court. Her white robes seemed to brighten, and Marcus could feel the power of her presence filling the room. "We are gathered here to address a grave injustice," she began, her voice carrying easily to every corner of the hall. "Not the injustice of a broken law, but the injustice of a law that has forgotten its purpose." A murmur went through the crowd. Several officials exchanged worried glances. It was clear that this was not what they had expected to hear from their queen. 3 days ago, the queen continued, "My daughter Princess Lorelei nearly died aboard the human vessel. She was saved by the quick actions of security officer Marcus Chen, who risked his own life to preserve hers. Instead of celebrating this act of courage, our court has condemned this human to mental destruction for the crime of touching royal blood." Ambassador Kithara stood up. "Your Majesty, the law is clear. It has protected our people for 3,000 years. We cannot simply ignore it because silence." The queen's voice cut through Kithara's words like a blade. "I have linked with this human's mind. I have seen his memories and felt his thoughts. In the moment when he chose to act, he calculated 17 different rescue scenarios. He selected the one most likely to save my daughter's life, knowing it would probably cost him his own." She began walking among the assembled Zephyrians, her presence making many of them step backward. "This human showed more concern for royal blood than any of you in this room. He valued my daughter's life above his own freedom, his own safety, his own existence. Yet you condemn him for blasphemy because he touched her skin while pulling her from certain death." The chief judge rose from his seat. "Your Majesty, the ancient laws exist for good reasons. Without them, our society would collapse into chaos. Order must be maintained." "Order?" The queen's eyes flashed with silver fire. "You call this order? A system that punishes heroes and protects the very people who tried to murder my daughter." The hall fell completely silent. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat in the quiet. "Yes," the queen said, her voice now deadly calm. "Murder. While you were all focused on punishing the human who saved Lorelei, I conducted my own investigation. The safety barrier that failed was not damaged by accident. It was deliberately weakened." She gestured, and several guards entered the hall, escorting 3 Zephyrians in chains. Marcus recognized one of them as a court advisor who had been present during the trial. The other 2 wore the robes of lesser nobles. "These conspirators," the queen announced, weakened the barrier intending to cause my daughter's death. They hoped to eliminate her from the succession and place their own candidate on the throne. Their plan would have succeeded, except for the intervention of a human who cared more about preserving life than about following rules. The three prisoners were forced to their knees in front of the throne. The court advisor who Marcus recognized tried to speak, but one of the guards silenced him with a gesture. Ambassador Cathara looked stunned. "Your Majesty, if this is true, then the circumstances of the incident change everything. Perhaps we should reconsider the human's punishment in light of—" "No." The Queen's voice echoed through the hall. "We will not reconsider. We will revolutionize." She returned to her throne but remained standing, looking down at the assembled court. "I hereby abolish the law of royal blood protection. Any law that punishes someone for saving a life is a law that has lost its way. From this day forward, the highest crime in our empire will be the failure to preserve life when it is within one's power to do so." Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Several officials looked as if they might faint. This was not just a change in law. It was a fundamental transformation of their entire society. Furthermore, the Queen continued, "I establish a new principle for our empire. Character will be valued above birth, courage above protocol, and compassion above custom. Those who risk themselves for others, regardless of species or status, will be honored as the highest examples of civilization." She looked directly at Marcus. Officer Chun approached the throne. Marcus walked forward, still barely believing what he was hearing. The Zephyrians around him stepped aside, no longer looking at him as a criminal, but as something else entirely. When Marcus reached the throne, Queen Nissarian finally sat down. She looked at him with those swirling silver eyes, and Marcus felt as if she was seeing all the way to his soul. "You have shown us what true nobility looks like," she said. "Not nobility of birth, but nobility of spirit. I offer you a place in the Royal Guard, the first alien ever to receive such an honor. You would have the authority to act as you did aboard the human ship, to preserve life wherever you find it threatened." Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about the offer. It was more than he had ever imagined possible. But as he looked around the hall at the shocked faces of the Zephyrians, he realized something important. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "I am honored by your offer, but I think my place is elsewhere. There are many species in the galaxy who do not yet know each other. If humans and Zephyrians can learn to work together, perhaps others can too. I would like to help build those bridges." The Queen smiled, and Marcus realized it was the first time he had seen any Zephyrian smile. "A wise answer," she said. "Very well. You will return to your people as our first official ambassador, and you will carry with you a message for all the species of the galaxy, that true civilization is measured not by the grandeur of its laws, but by the willingness of its people to risk everything for the preservation of life." She stood again and addressed the full court. "The three conspirators will be sentenced to serve on rescue missions throughout the galaxy. They will spend their remaining years saving the lives of others, learning the value of what they tried to destroy." The hall erupted in discussion as Zephyrians tried to process the massive changes their queen had just announced. Marcus found himself surrounded by beings who an hour ago had wanted to erase his mind, but who now looked at him with something approaching awe. Princess Lorelei approached him as the crowd began to disperse. "Thank you," she said simply. "Not just for saving my life, but for showing us a better way to live." Marcus nodded. "Your mother is a remarkable leader. She was willing to change everything rather than let an injustice stand." "She learned that from you," the princess replied. "From seeing how you acted without thinking of consequences. Sometimes the most important changes come from the simplest decisions." 5 years had passed since the incident aboard the Harmony's Edge. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Life Guardian, a ship unlike any other in the galaxy. It was jointly built by humans and Zephyrians, designed specifically for rescue operations across known space. The ship's hull bore symbols from both cultures, representing the alliance that had grown from a single moment of courage. The crew was equally mixed. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian technicians. Their different approaches to problem-solving, creating solutions neither species could have developed alone. In the medical bay, human doctors learned Zephyrian healing techniques, while Zephyrian healers studied human emergency medicine. The combination had already saved thousands of lives. Captain Sarah Morrison had taken early retirement from diplomatic service to join Marcus's rescue course. She now served as the mission coordinator, using her experience to navigate the complex politics of rescue operations in disputed territories. Her decision to support Marcus during the trial had earned her respect among both species. "Incoming distress signal," announced Lieutenant Cass, a young Zephyrian who served as communications officer. Her silver markings indicated she was from a lower caste family, but under the new laws. Her skills and dedication had earned her a position that would have been impossible before. Queen Nessarian's reforms. Marcus moved to the communication station. "What do we have?" "Mining accident on Kepler Station," Cass reported. "A tunnel collapse has trapped 47 workers. The local authorities estimate they have less than 6 hours of air remaining." "Set course for Kepler Station, maximum speed," Marcus ordered. "Alert the rescue teams and prepare the drilling equipment." The Life Guardian changed course smoothly, its hybrid propulsion system allowing it to reach speeds that neither human nor Zephyrian ships could achieve alone. Through the viewports, Marcus could see escort ships from both fleets taking positions around them. The rescue corps had become so successful that both governments provided military protection for their missions. Princess Lorelei, now called Commander Lorelei, entered the bridge carrying a datapad filled with technical specifications for the mining station. She had surprised everyone by requesting assignment to the rescue corps immediately after her mother's reforms took effect. Her training in Royal Protocol had been replaced with courses in emergency response and disaster management. "I have the station blueprints," she said, handing the pad to Marcus. "The collapse happened in the deepest section. Traditional drilling will take too long." Marcus studied the information while his mind automatically began calculating rescue scenarios. The ability that had saved Liralei's life had only improved with experience. He could now process dozens of variables simultaneously, finding solutions to problems that seemed impossible. "We will need to use the quantum bore," he decided. "It is risky, but it is the only way to reach them in time." The quantum bore was one of the new technologies developed by the joint human Zephyrian research teams. It could cut through almost any material by manipulating the atomic structure, but it required precise calculation. A mistake could collapse the entire tunnel system. "I will handle the calculations," Lirelei said. Zephyrian mathematics combined with human intuition. They worked together as the ship approached Kepler Station. Marcus provided the tactical assessment, while Lirelei calculated the exact angles and power settings needed for the bore. Their partnership had become legendary throughout the course, a symbol of what the two species could accomplish together. The rescue operation took 4 hours. Using the quantum bore, they created a new tunnel that bypassed the collapsed area completely. The 47 miners were brought out alive, suffering only minor injuries from their experience. As always, the rescue teams worked without asking for payment or recognition. After the operation, Marcus found himself alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. It had become his habit to spend time here after difficult rescues, reflecting on the lives that had been saved and thinking about the ones they might face in the future. Lirelei joined him, as she often did. Their friendship had grown from the shared experience of nearly dying together, but it had deepened through years of working side by side. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Giving up the chance for a normal life?" Marcus considered the question. He could have stayed on Earth, accepted a promotion, maybe started a family. Instead, he spent his time traveling to dangerous places, risking his life for strangers he would never see again. "No," he said finally. "This is what I was meant to do. Every time we save someone, I remember why that moment aboard your ship was so important." "My mother says that moment changed everything," Lireley said. "Not just for our two species, but for the entire galaxy." She was right. The Marcus doctrine had spread far beyond human and Zephyrian space. Other alien civilizations had heard the story and begun to reconsider their own laws and customs. Several species had established their own rescue organizations. Following the example set by the Life Guardian, the Andromedan Collective had abolished their caste system after witnessing how effectively humans and Zephyrians worked together despite their differences. The Silicon Mines had developed new protocols that prioritized life preservation over computational efficiency. Even the warlike Kratarians had signed treaties establishing neutral zones where rescue operations could take place without interference. "Have you heard the latest reports from the Outer Rim?" Lireley asked. "3 more species want to join the Galactic Rescue Alliance." Marcus smiled. The Alliance had been Lireley's idea, a formal organization that coordinated rescue efforts across known space. It now included representatives from 12 different species, all working together to preserve life wherever it was threatened. "Your mother must be proud," Marcus said. "She is proud of all of us," Lireley replied. "But she says the real victory was learning that laws should serve life, not the other way around." A message came through the ship's communication system, interrupting their conversation. It was Queen Gessarian herself, calling from the Zephyrian homeworld. "Marcus Lireley," the Queen's voice said warmly. "I have news. The Galactic Council has approved a proposal for a permanent rescue station at the Galactic Hub. Construction will begin immediately." This was something they had all been working toward for years. A central station that could coordinate rescue efforts across the entire galaxy, staffed by volunteers from every allied species. "Who will command the station?" Marcus asked. "I believe that decision should be made by the person who started all of this," the Queen replied. "Marcus Chen, the Council has unanimously voted to offer you the position of Chief Rescue Coordinator for the galaxy." Marcus felt Lireley's hand on his shoulder, her support evident even without words. Through the viewport, he could see ships from a dozen different species, all working together because of a choice he had made 5 years ago to save one life. "I accept," he said simply. Later that night, as the Life Guardian traveled toward its next mission, Marcus walked through the ship's corridors. He passed the medical bay where a human doctor was teaching Zephyrian students about emergency surgery. In the engineering section, a mixed team was developing new rescue equipment that combined the best of both technologies. In the crew quarters, he found a group of young officers from various species gathered around a table, sharing stories about successful rescues. They came from cultures that had been enemies for centuries, but here they were friends, united by a common purpose. Marcus remembered something Ambassador Cathara had said during the trial about laws protecting society from chaos. The old ambassador had been wrong. True order did not come from rigid rules that prevented action. It came from shared values that encouraged beings to risk everything for each other. The rescue corps had grown beyond anything Marcus had imagined when he dove after a falling princess. It had become a symbol of what the galaxy can accomplish when different species work together. But at its heart, it remained what it had always been, a group of individuals willing to put other lives before their own safety. As Marcus looked out at the stars, he thought about all the lives that had been saved, all the species that had learned to work together, and all the laws that had been changed because one human had refused to calculate the cost of doing what was right. The galaxy was a better place now. not because of grand strategies or political agreements, but because people from dozens of worlds had learned a simple truth. When life calls for help, heroes answer, regardless of the consequences. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, new distress signals were already being transmitted, calling for help that would come from beings who had learned that the most important law was the willingness